Welcome, mothers and others. Today we are so lucky to introduce you to a wonderful candidate, and you may have been hearing a lot about her because I know I certainly have. So today we're meeting Michelle Vallejo, who is a candidate in the Texas 15th Congressional District, which runs from Hidalgo County in the Rio Grande Valley towards Seguin in Guadalupe County to the east of San Antonio. There is no incumbent in Congressional District 15, and her opponent is Monica de la Cruz. She is running for Congress because she wants to build communities in South Texas where all of the people of all backgrounds can thrive. Welcome, Michelle. We're so glad you're here.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Mothers Against Greg Abbott. I love how you all are reclaiming MAGA, which is also one of the reasons why I'm wearing red today, because as a Democratic nominee in this race, I feel like we look gray and red and there's no reason to give it up. So we are resisting, we're working hard, we're fighting, and we're doing what's right. So thank you, everyone, for joining me. And I'm so excited for this conversation. Thank you, Nancy, for having me.
Yes, me too. Michelle and I got to know each other at the Texas Democratic Convention, and her team were just wonderful, lovely, nice, and it was so exciting. And I loved their outfits that day because they were wearing Texas flag shirts, and I just thought they were awesome. I really wanted one. They were fantastic. So we're super glad you're here. So Michelle, this is mostly just going to be a conversation between us. We just ask some questions and let's just have a good time, especially because we know each other. Let's just chat and just kind of see what comes up. Your district is very interesting. It has an interesting long strip that includes many cities and parts of cities and parts of counties. So it's a little bit of everything. But can you give us a little bit of background on your district and what you see in all the areas in your district? What are they needing from their congressional representative?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually sitting in front of one of our maps, our congressional maps. And if you look at it, that green area in the middle, that's Texas 15. So you do have a long strip up from Hidalgo County right at the border. McAllen is the most southern point of our district. And it goes up to Guadalupe County. Seguin is the most northern part of our district, right outside of San Antonio. And you could imagine that the needs for the people in this area are diverse, unique, and the people living in the different counties. Our district is a 7-county district, are different from each other even. And so my priority and my main focus every single day of this campaign has been connecting and learning more about the needs of my district. And so there is a Border Patrol checkpoint right smack in the middle. So even perceptions and experiences when it comes to every issue across the board are different from one end to the other in Texas 15. But something that is so beautiful and that unites us across the board, no matter our background, is that we love our home. We love South Texas. We love South Central Texas, because even a part of our district is part of that South Central area. And I think that that's why we're in this fight. We're in this fight because we want a better home for all of us. When we all thrive, we all thrive. And there's no other way about it. And my drive has really been rooted from my experience in my community and my deep roots, which start at the flea market, start at the Pulga. My parents started a flea market when I was about 6 or 7 years old, about 25 years ago. And that is how I learned to work with my community. I learned to work with my family in order to build a better life, no matter what the circumstances were. Something that I have been, I think, more brave about on this campaign trail is also sharing the health journey that my mom experienced. She lived with multiple sclerosis for 15 years, and she passed away at a very young age. She was only 46 years old. And through that experience, growing up in a household where my mom didn't have access to the critical care that she needed and to be treated with dignity so that she could be able to see all the specialists that she needed and not have to drive, even to Dallas, which is hours and hours away. And considering all of her experiences, those are really challenging things to do. And as I've gotten older and as I've gotten closer to my community as a leader and as someone who's a small business owner, I know that the experiences that my family went through and the challenges that we faced are not unique. And those challenges have only gotten even harder as we have now been venturing the pandemic and figuring out what we need for ourselves, because considering issues like climate change and also the fact that we have a failing electric grid here in Texas, these are alarming issues that we really need to take into our own hands in order to create a better environment, better home for ourselves here in South Texas.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk a little bit about the pulgas because not everybody knows a little bit about them. So, in Mexican communities, pulgas are a way of life, and your family has been running the Pulga Los Portales for a quarter of a century, where you've taken over with your father since your mother passed away. And what has the pulga taught you about community and leadership?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have gone through a lot of challenges at the flea market. And what it has taught me is that you need to dive even further into your community in order to overcome those challenges. So, for example, back in 2016, when unfortunately Trump came into office, the fear just grew in my community to where someone would whisper La Migra and people would scram because it just felt like such an alarming thing and felt like we were being attacked. Even people who didn't even know their documentation status were frightened. The flea market is a 25-acre property, and we serve hundreds of small business owners and people of all ages. So children to people in wheelchairs in later ages of life. And so what I experienced when I saw that was a shock, in the sense that my community was in immediate line of danger because of this palpable fear due to our leader, who should have been protecting us and saving us from more detrimental situations instead of putting us right in the line of danger. But what I did was I called up our fire department, and I asked them to come visit the flea market so that our community members could feel safer with first line responders and even with law enforcement. So I've had to develop a stronger relationship with all city services in the city of Alton, our city leaders, our police department, our firemen, in order to serve the vendors and the families at Los Portales the best and in the most safe way possible. And it has been a beautiful experience and a beautiful journey. The Pulga in particular, and for those who don't know, is a flea market. But it has a little bit of a different sound and a little bit of a different taste. Sometimes I like to say that it's a little bit of Mexico on this side of the border because there's a lot of food, there's a lot of music, there's a lot of cultural arts, and just a lot of beautiful family and community bonding that you really don't experience anywhere else.
Yeah, that's great. And I agree with you about that sense of just danger that kind of happened after Trump. I mean, I happen to live in Austin and it's a safer community, but I think it was felt everywhere, including my community here. And so I understand where you're coming from because I still remember as a Latina speaking to another Latina, I remember feeling that as well. Like just that sense of fear, like knowing if you were going to go into a store, not knowing if somebody was going to attack you for any reason. And often when I would go to a store and I noticed that people were speaking Spanish, I just kind of stuck close to them a little bit because I figured if they got attacked for speaking Spanish or somebody said something to them, I could always like hop in. And so I just always just lingered and kind of took on that protector role because I could speak Spanish and English. So I just remember being that having that sense of fear. So I understand where you're coming from. Um let's talk a little bit about your mom. So your mom and healthcare. So your mom did pass away at the age of 46, which is so young. And you mentioned on your campaign site that the treatment she received made you realize that you wanted to serve South Texas. So um, let's talk about healthcare and what a good healthcare program means to you as you're running for office.
Yeah. So here in South Texas, in Texas 15, the culture is that you go to Mexico when you feel sick or you need medication, and that should not be the answer for anyone. We should have quality, affordable, accessible healthcare in our own home and here in our region and in our state. The United States is the richest country in the world. It's ridiculous that we are turning to other countries in order to go to the doctor or be able to afford medications that we need that are critical and life-saving. And what I experienced, or what I witnessed through my mom's journey, was that so often the specialists she needed to see were not here in South Texas. They weren't even here in the States sometimes, at least the ones that she was able to afford or that we were able to access. That has been something that is so eye-opening to me, because there are so many more families than my own who are in even more dire situations. And I don't think it's reasonable or humane for families and people to be forced to have to sell barbecue plates or chicken plates in order to afford healthcare expenses, and for families to be one medical issue away from being indebted for the rest of their life, and for their quality of life to completely plummet to where there's no hope in sight. And that's why I am so proud to be championing access to affordable healthcare for all of us, because it is a human right. And one issue that I bring up as well, and that we've seen really try to start crumbling down in this election cycle, is our access to reproductive care and to abortion care. And I fundamentally believe that abortions are healthcare, and that no women and no family and no person should be denied that care. And having to be able to make those decisions with politicians is just a joke. It's a disgrace. And that's what we're seeing here in Texas, where Governor Abbott wants to come into your bedroom, or he wants to come into the operating room with you. And that should never be allowed. And I'm so proud to be in this fight, pushing back against that alongside all of you, because we know better. We know what we need, and we know what we deserve, and we deserve that healthcare.
Amen. You know, my mom goes to Ciudad Juarez all the time for her medical health care. She lives in El Paso, and she goes over the border to Juarez. And some of her doctors even have offices in both El Paso and in Juarez in order to serve those communities that kind of have to go between both. So it's interesting to see what healthcare is like on the border. I don't think a lot of people in other areas of Texas really understand it. The extent of the poverty and how they have no choice, right? You know, if they want to get health care, they have to make that drive into Mexico to get affordable health care.
Right.
So yeah, I understand that. So completely. So your district, Congressional District 15, is heavily Democratic, which is fantastic. But during the primaries, almost some members of the Republican Party also came out to vote. So how important is every Democratic vote right now in a Congressional District 15? And what are you ensuring to make sure that the Democrats come out to vote for you this November?
Right. So if Democrats come out, Democrats win, especially in this region, especially in Texas 15, which is the #1 most competitive congressional seat in the state. Top 5, if not top 10 most competitive nationwide to hold on to the House majority. And so all eyes are on Texas 15. On the other side, my opponent is a pretty radical right Republican who is just pretty much playing the national Republican agenda. She has hidden away from the community, has stopped responding to those who are inviting candidates to debates or forums, so that we have an electorate, and we have voters that know exactly who they're going to be voting for and who their candidates are. And I think that this is really important for people of Texas to understand, and in South Texas specifically, to understand what's on the ballot. And it's not just coming down to the candidates, it's coming down to vital issues and rights that we are willing to defend or push against. And I know that I am fighting for women's rights. I know I'm fighting for families' rights. I know that I'm fighting for the families of South Texas. And my opponent has made it very clear that she is fighting for special interests and, frankly, millionaires and corporations that do not live in this region. And that's why South Texas has been left behind, I think, for so long, because there have been other interests and other players who want to buy up seats and want to disenfranchise our voters. But I won't stand for that. I am so proud to be in this fight with my community backing, because we know, like I said, what's best for us. And the way that we're making sure that people are going to come out to vote is we're engaging folks who've never been talked to about elections. We're engaging with folks who have never felt included in the democratic process. And this includes young voters. This includes bilingual voters. This includes Spanish dominant voters. And we are organizing in a way to where we are putting tools, data-backed information in the hands of our community members so that they could go ahead and spread the news, spread that information to their family members, and make sure that as a group, as a family, they come out to vote. So one thing that has been very clear to me this entire time, this entire election cycle since December, is that people power beats money. Because every step of the way I have been outspent, but not outworked and not out-organized. And it's because I came in with this community support and community effort in order for us to reclaim our power. And this election cycle, I think we're going to see Latinos in particular and in South Texas take a hold of that right that we have and exercise our power by showing up to vote and making sure that we are standing up for our families and women and our children's future, quite frankly.
Thank you. I agree with you. I also think that we're all going to show up to vote. I'm hoping that we all surprise the Republicans because they think that they have the Latino vote in South Texas. They think they have it. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see what actually does happen. I'd like to see more Latinos actually show up. So I'm looking forward to that. You have a lot of really great experience in your background. In particular, you worked with the National Hispanic Institute, and it's something that other Latinas in politics have done, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's also an alumni of NHI. So minority leadership organizations deserve some space and recognition as they're helping to ensure the electorate is diverse and representative of the communities that they serve. So what did NHI teach you about Latino leadership? And were there other minority leadership groups that you believe to help you shape your campaign and who you are today?
Yeah. So my experience with NHI, National Hispanic Institute, was one that really opened my eyes to all the opportunities that I had as someone growing up in this country. It was so beautiful because it was the first time that I traveled out of my most immediate community, because I did grow up in a more strict household where my parents wouldn't really let me go far, and definitely not spend the night at any friend's home because we were just so tight knit, and I think maybe even a little overprotected sometimes, and really, really close. But I remember driving off to Sherman, Texas for a debate, and it was so sweet because my parents dropped me off, and my dad, he had some tears in his eyes, and it just felt like a growth moment. It felt like I was making a jump to face a challenge that my parents hadn't faced themselves. And when I went to the great debate, or it was actually, can't remember what it was, the debate series, but it was in Sherman, Texas in 2009. And that experience taught me to never give up and never back down, even when you are venturing into new spaces, even when you're walking into rooms where no one else looks like you, and even when your thoughts, opinions, and experience are different and unique from everyone else around you. And NHI taught me that actually that uniqueness is what makes you valuable and special in a room of others. And I have never backed down from being outspoken, maybe even being a little feisty, to push change and to drive change forward. I firmly believe that South Texas is so beautiful and just so fit for so many opportunities and for so much growth for all of us here who are living in this region. But we deserve more. We deserve more resources. We deserve more educational opportunities. We deserve better paying jobs and career pathways for our very young workforce. We also deserve continued education. We also deserve to be able to have that healthcare access here in our own home for whatever issue we're facing. And so NHI taught me to never give up, but also that there are other fighters in Texas and across the country that feel this fire in their tummy as well. And when we find each other across the country collectively, we have a lot of power. And I think right now, like we were just saying, the Latino electorate in particular is waking up to how much power we have. I think just a few days ago, there was an article saying that now Latinos in Texas are the majority, which is amazing. Like, this is a huge milestone. And I think that it's just a reflection of where we're going as a country. We're becoming more diverse. And we are also becoming, I would say, more beautiful because of all the different experiences, mindsets, and people that make up the fabric of the United States. I think also one other thing that I learned through NHI was the strength and power of mentorship. There are some Latinos who are leading that organization, and they set a good example of how to give back to community. So that's been something that I've always done. I've always reached back out to younger community members, students, and people who I know are venturing these new spaces, just to say, like, hey, even if you feel like you have failed, that doesn't mean that your journey is over. It might just mean that your journey is opening up to a whole new opportunity. I myself didn't think that I would ever run for Congress. And it was actually a matter of a few weeks from when this opportunity presented itself and when I actually got nominated and endorsed by my community. And when I was signing those papers to make this commitment to fight for South Texas and to be the Democratic nominee and hopeful Congresswoman. And it's something that I love to share with everyone because even if your path doesn't seem or appear to be the one that you had in mind, it doesn't mean that you're not going to a very amazing place and that you're going to create a great change for yourself, your home, and your family.
I can relate to that a whole lot. Thank you so much. I think you inspired many, many of us out there. So I really am inspired by what you had to say, and I'm going to want to help out with NHI a little bit now. I need to tell my daughter to start getting involved with NHI because I can just see lots of opportunities there for other Latinos and especially Latinas to go out there and get involved locally. You founded a New Leaders Council STX Frontera chapter, which helps progressive community leaders across sectors advance equality in South Texas. Talk to us a little bit about what this chapter has been able to accomplish and how it has impacted your community.
So New Leaders Council, South Texas Frontera, is our local chapter, and it's part of a 50 chapter network nationwide that are training young progressive champions in our home regions that want to create an impact here locally. And something that I really loved about my experience co-founding NLC here in South Texas is that it connected us from Laredo to McAllen to Brownsville, something that I had always desired to experience, but I didn't really see the opportunity to do so. I knew that many of us living on the frontera, living in the border region, had a lot to share with each other and had a lot in common, but all we had unique experiences and challenges that we could each learn from. So what this organization has done is it has now graduated 3 classes, 3 cohorts of young leaders from Brownsville to Laredo. And these are people who have done 6-month trainings and how to become a more effective leader, whether it comes to their environment at work or their involvement in work, or when it comes to what they're doing as a passion in their community, or starting their own venture, nonprofit, or movement group in order to create a better change and lasting change here in South Texas. What is exciting in particular about NLC is that it focuses more on young leaders and it connects us with leaders who have been in the game a little bit now, and it connects us in a way that we're able to transfer some generational knowledge to where we're able to pick up the torch from someone who's probably been there maybe 10, 20, 30 years doing some work or doing something in their specific industry, but it connects them with someone who could continue driving that change forward. And also just bringing new ideas to the table as well and connecting that with folks already in positions of power in order to create a more diverse solution. I think right now what we're facing are things that are pretty complicated when it comes to the challenges we face with extreme weather and climate change, to the fact that we right now have children and families terrified about kids going to school. And these are unique challenges that I don't remember experiencing when I was growing up. So that's why it's important to bring more people to the table in order to identify what the solution we need here in our own home to face that.
Yes, one of these days, Michelle, my children and my great grandchildren are going to be taking pictures with you. Like you're going to be the next Dolores Huerta for us. So I'm really just I'm listening to you and I'm just nodding my head in total complete agreement. Definitely your values and my values are so in line and so in line with the values of Mothers Against Greg Abbott right now as you're talking. I'm hearing a lot of things that I'm really impressed with. I mean, you're saying family and community, and it's just going to take all of us rebuilding Texas because I just feel like Texas really needs to be rebuilt right now with a lot of heart. And when you're talking, that's what I see every single time you talk. I see the heart in you. So I'm very impressed right now. Thank you so much. You've helped immigrants that have been impacted by the Trump era policies that have criminalized people coming across the US in hopes of amnesty. You represent border towns that are considered some of the safest in the country. So what did you hear when immigrants during their transcriptions? What do you hear from immigrants, and what do you think about Abbott's new tactic of sending immigrants to liberal states and cities without notice, without any communication? It's been a wild week of news. Every single day, Abbott and DeSantis are doing more abhorrent things and um, dehumanizing people and dehumanizing other Latinos from other areas of the world, and it is just gross. It's disgusting to see. So I wanted to get an idea about what your positions are on border policies. What do you think about what Greg Abbott is doing? Just let us know and how it's impacting your communities.
Yeah. So I had the privilege and the honor of volunteering with the Women's Refugee Commission. And I was able to help transcribe some interviews that were conducted between parents and even children that were separated due to the zero tolerance policy back in 2018. And these conversations were so beautiful in a sense because we got to talk to people as opposed to seeing numbers of immigrants who are crossing the border, as opposed to seeing bars and graphs on a paper saying this represents people. We actually got to talk with people and humanize them in this experience that we're all going through when it comes to immigration and being part of the border region. And I think something that we share is this drive for a better life and for better opportunity. And what I got to put behind some of those interviews was faces and names. And those are the people that I think of when I hear about these unbelievable actions and political games that we're seeing unfold across the country, in particular here in Texas. And coming from Florida as well. It's ridiculous. It's dehumanizing. It's cruel. It's inhumane. And I will never be convinced otherwise because I know these people. I know some of these people who have been stripped away from their children when they were just trying to find safety and refuge because they're escaping climate crisis or they're escaping a very violent environment in their own home. And these are things that we cannot forget. These are human beings. These are people. And I think right now, this moment that we're experiencing in history is one that is requiring for us to look inside as well and understand compassion and humanity at the deepest level in order to face the challenge that we face here in South Texas and in the border region when it comes to immigration. People are coming with desperate needs, and the way that they're being met by our country right now is failing them, and it's failing us. I think that we need a lot more help, a lot more resources in order to be able to have a process for asylum, right? That's safe, that's legal, and that's fair. Also, I believe that we are deserving of a pathway to citizenship and policy that works. And I believe that this will allow our family members, our community members, people who have lived here their entire life, to be able to be fully engaged as a citizen and as a community member. Right now, I'm thinking of DACA students that were promised a pathway to citizenship, but right now we don't see any solution in sight. I'm also thinking about some veterans who have served in the military, but were discharged before meeting that 5-year mark or whatever number mark of years that they had to reach in order to be granted citizenship, and they've gotten deported. So these are people, and these are folks who have served and who have done things the right way, but there keeps being a moving goalpost to where every I would say administration, quite frankly, changes what is right, what is legal, what is capable. And I think here in South Texas and every area of the borderland region is deserving of policy that works, even past any administration that comes in or out of office, because quite frankly, we really do carry the brunt of bad policy, and those consequences are felt generation after generation. And what we're seeing people do, like Governor Greg Abbott, is punishable and is that we should allow. I think that Americans ourselves, we should stand up to that and say, hey, you're not representing me, my home, our country in a way of that represents us to the rest of the world. I think we need to stop seeing just what's right in front of us and understand that we could be an example for the rest of the world on how to receive people with humanity, but also have good working immigration policy to where we are leaders across the globe of how to receive, but also to integrate and have better relationships with the countries where these people are coming from. Because I think we need a more complex solution than just a border wall, which we know is rooted in a pretty divisive political strategy of one person, which other candidates have jumped onto, like my opponent, who, when asked about border immigration and what may be the border Biden crisis, is that we just need a wall. And when asked anything else, there's no solution, quite frankly. So what we're seeing from the other side is just a tactic to be divisive and to increasingly build a wedge between the members of our own communities here. Nancy, I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, no, you absolutely did. I think we'll pivot. Like, it kind of goes into one of my next questions, which is one of the most frustrating things that as we're learning about the border issues, and as Abbott talks about the border issues, one, they never talk about solutions, but two, they never talk about what climate change is doing to other parts of the world that is impacting immigration right now in the United States, and how it is impacting immigration. I mean, even tonight, as we see climate change and things happening in Puerto Rico is being hit, with storms and hurricanes and stuff, they haven't even recovered from the last one. So, I mean, we can't imagine what it's like for some of these people that live in islands or different areas of South America when they get hit by storms, and how climate change is impacting them, and how the people there feel like they have no place to go, so they come to the United States. And what we need to talk about now is, let's talk about climate change, because you're going to be in a unique opportunity in Washington, D.C. to talk about Texas and what's going on in climate change in Texas. So I was wondering, what is your climate change platform?
Yeah, so here in South Texas, when talking to the voters, people want to hear about jobs. Right. So I love to talk to people about the amazing opportunities we have here in South Texas in order to make investments that are sustainable and that will create a better home and environment for all of us. And I really, truly believe firmly that a healthy environment creates a healthy community, and overall that creates safer communities. If that's what we want to talk about community safety, let's go to the root of it. And let's talk about making sure we have clean, safe running water. Let's make sure that we have everything we need to face brush fires. We saw just this summer that there were so many parts of our state and country that were ablaze. They were on fire. And right now here in this region of Texas, we are experiencing one of the most dire droughts ever historically, we need to preserve our river. We need to preserve our home. And this is not just for the future generations, but this is for us, the generation that's currently living here. And so we should not shy away from making the demands from Washington, D.C. to make those investments in our home, to make sure that our lights stay on when it gets too hot or too cold, so that our water is clean and safe when we turn on the faucet, and that we make sure that we're protecting our natural environments as well, because a more protected environment, a safer, cleaner environment ultimately leads to a healthier, happier life. And I think ultimately the goal here is to have a better quality of life for all of us. And it really does start with your most immediate environment. And our home is our planet. And so it's our responsibility, and it's up to us to make some changes and to make sure that we're making smart investments for our current day and our future. And what's amazing is that the people who bring up climate change the most to me are the younger voters, and people who can't even vote yet because they're that young. And so our kids are paying attention, and they're alarmed, and they want to make sure that they have a home that's safe for them to live in. And I think we need to listen. I think we need to pay attention, and I think we need to make some bold actions when it comes to being realistic about the current situation when it comes to climate change and the changes we need to make in order to have a functioning home.
Absolutely. It may surprise you, but here in Austin, Texas, we didn't hear too much about South Texas and the fact that there are a couple counties that were almost out of water this summer. And that's shocking to me. Is so, Governor Abbott sending all these people to the border and, putting in billions of dollars of resources down at the border. Yet we have thousands of people that live down there that are almost out of water. And so how frustrating was that for you to live in an area that was almost out of water, definitely going through a crisis, and the crisis wasn't even making Texas headlines?
Yeah. Something that I've learned as a candidate is that some leaders will base all of their decision based on a survey, based on surveying 400 people or 1,000 people and seeing if them focusing on certain issues will help build their name recognition, as opposed to actually prioritizing the most critical issues that we need to be solving right now. And the fact that the rest of Texas, the rest of our country didn't know that we were so close to running out of water, and how alarming it is considering we're going to have to face this again, is something that we really need to ring the alarm to. We're being ignored, and we have the wrong leaders in office right now. And that's why we really need to take matters into our own hands. We need to vote, and we need to stay in close contact with our leaders in order to hold everyone accountable who's responsible for making decisions on our behalf. I think it's important that every single individual person understands that the power is with us. People who go into office, elected officials, are serving us. Their job is to do what we need. And we see that that's not the case at all. So there really needs to be a changing shift in democracy, and in people and families need to reclaim that power. And it starts by showing up at the ballot box.
Amen. I agree with you there. So yeah, we just talked a little bit about climate change, but another issue that is also really important right now to families across Texas is gun laws and gun safety. So what are your positions, especially being, going off to Congress? You have a unique position to actually make federal change for gun safety laws. And so I was wondering what your position is for gun safety laws at a federal level.
Yeah, so there are many sensible changes that we could implement and protections, such as increasing the age of when people are able to get a gun. It's ridiculous that 18-year-olds are able to get these weapons, quite frankly, of mass destruction. And there might be some background checks, but they're so young that there's nothing on their background, so they're able to get a gun quicker than someone who might be 50, who might be more responsible and sensible. Also, red flag laws need to be in place. I think there's so many people who show that they are at risk of committing a crime of those types that we don't even would want to imagine, but we've experienced, unfortunately. And I will not forget the families in Uvalde, Texas. I will not forget what happened at Robb Elementary, because that happened to be the same day of the night of our primary election. Actually, it was a runoff election. And it was such a surreal moment to where we were celebrating with our community, all the work that we had done and everything we had accomplished, but at the same time being so heartbroken and devastated, seeing families crying and just so torn up by the fact that we had 19 children murdered, senselessly. And we knew, while we had accomplished something great, we had so much more to do. And our job is not done. We need to continue working. We need to continue pushing in order for our schools to be safe, and making sure that the wrong people do not end up with guns in their hands. And there are other policies in place that I think are not being respected when it comes to, people being able to buy guns at gun shows, without any background checks, without any types of safety measures put into place. There's also a big piece of gun safety. Like, we don't just want to take guns away from everyone. Here in South Texas, we grew up going hunting with our dads and our uncles, and it's part of the culture. But what I like to remind everyone is, like, sure, we are a culture that likes to go hunting, but we're also a culture that loves our kids. We're also a culture that believes in safe schools. We're also a culture that believes that we are in a critical situation, and that when parents are afraid of sending their kids to school, we have a serious issue in our hands that we need to deal with and not keep brushing under the rug. For example, my opponent, she doesn't talk about gun safety at all. She loves to parade herself in photos with big AR-15s. And I'm like, this is not the message that our community needs right now. Our community needs compassionate care, and we need to be prioritized as humans and as families before anything that you sold off to the NRA. I don't know what deal she has over there, but it does not serve our families of South Texas. It does not serve our children. It does not keep us safe. So that just motivates me even more to drive harder to win this seat, because she will not keep our families safe at all, especially when it comes to gun safety.
Yes, thank you. So, okay, so your district is heavily Latino. It is majority female. The median household income, according to Wikipedia, is $48,000 compared to the Texas median household of $68,000. We talk a lot about Mexican women being paid the least, and an equal pay site currently shows that Latinas make 49 cents to the dollar of what every white man makes. So how does that impact the families in your district, and what would you do in office to promote equal pay, especially here in Texas and in your district?
We have so many single moms in our district that are taking care of their children on their own, to where they have to take on 3, even 4 jobs to be able to make ends meet. And even then, sometimes they can't keep the lights on. And this is something that should be prioritized, but also should be respected. I think we need to be respecting the women of our communities. I think we need to respect our moms, and we need to make sure that they have everything they need in the workforce to be able to raise their children and their families and to have a good quality of life. Women deserve to have affordable childcare, because it takes so much work to raise children and raise families and just get by every day with the simple things that we need to do, the simple responsibilities on top of taking on multiple jobs. And for so many, it's so amazing. There are moms in our community that are continuing their education, raising their children, and juggling multiple jobs so that they could get a better paying job. And maybe eventually they'll be able to have just one job that affords what they need. And so I think Congress needs to pay attention to Latinas in particular and Latinos in the workforce and make sure that we are all equipped to be the most viable and to be the best that we could be for the overall economy. I think that we are an untapped resource, but we need a lot more in order for us to reach our greatest potential. And when we do, our communities, our homes, and our country will be better for it.
I agree. I do think everyone needs to listen to Latinas a little bit more often as well. Especially speaking as a Latina who can't shut up. You know? So I completely agree. I think you make some really great points there. And I know I grew up with a mom who was divorced from my father, and I know how important it is to have a good salary for your mother and how important it is for just bringing food on the table and being secure in the family. So I think you made some really great points there. So I really just want to say thank you. The 14th Amendment is definitely on the table right now across the United States. It seems like the far right and the extremist Republicans are trying to break down and tear down the 14th Amendment. That includes LGBTQ issues. So that includes some of their equal rights that they have been protected under the 14th Amendment, and we're seeing the breaking down of some of these rights. So I wanted to ask you, what is your position for the LGBTQ communities and how we can protect them if you are elected into office?
Yeah, so it's ridiculous that our community, our LGBTQ community, is being targeted, quite frankly, in so many different ways. They have experienced increased violence, even done towards them. And in Texas, in particular, we see the demonizing of people because they're gay or because they're queer or because they identify differently than what, I don't know, people in office would consider the norm. I don't even know what they're basing it off of. But what I do know is that our LGBTQ community is one of love and so much fun and joy. And it's one that should be protected and deserves protection. And they are our community members and deserve every right to love who they love. They deserve every right to live as they wish to live. And I think that we need to make sure that we pass the Equality Act so that our community members are not discriminated against based on their race, gender, or sexual orientation, any of it. I feel like it's even disgraceful having to break things down in a sense, but we need to protect our community members because right now, some of the most marginalized are the ones that are being targeted the most to be painted as villains, and that's not the case. In fact, the LGBTQ community has been an amazing energy force for my campaign, and they have been some of the members of my team that have really inspired so many others to join on board because they don't back down and they love to make it fun and they love to make it musical and loud and joyous. And it's something that I think that we should embrace. And I think it's something that Texans in particular, some of our leaders in particular, either they need to get the picture or get out.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
100%. I do believe, like, the LGBT community brings so many special things into our lives, and they should be celebrated and not, treated with such ridicule as the far right is currently treating them. It really does upset me because when I think about the things that I enjoy most in life, which is like theater and art and musical theater and going to the movies, that all is LGBTQ people. I mean, they bring us so many beautiful things into our lives every day, and there's no reason that they should be disrespected the way they're being disrespected by the far right. So it does really upset me. So I hear you there. They're fun, they make life better, and we should make life better for them by protecting them. So I hear you 110%. Let's talk really quick, and then we're going to wrap up. Let's talk really quick about Dobbs and codifying Roe v. Wade and making that a priority if you are elected into office.
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. The people who I've been talking to on the campaign trail from all backgrounds are very alarmed of the fact that our leaders in Texas are willing to strip away our dignity and our rights of making choices for ourselves and what we feel is best for our health and for our families and for planning to have a family or not to have a family. And I think it's something that has really woken people up to the fact that we need to be paying attention to who we are putting into office, and we need to be holding them accountable to make sure that they are making the best decisions for us. And right now in Texas, the majority of Texans disagree with the abortion ban. They disagree with the trigger ban that went into effect not too many weeks ago that really puts doctors at risk also, and threatens them with even life in jail if they were to provide life-saving care. Here in South Texas in particular, we have been living in a post-Roe reality since even before the Dobbs decision came out. And we saw over in Starr County a case with a woman named Lizelle Herrera, who took matters into her own hands and provided and tried to get the medical care that she needed for an abortion. And when she ended up going to the hospital, she ended up getting a fee of $500,000 over her head by the district attorney, taking advantage of these cruel, draconian laws. But there's hope, because what happened, that was on a Friday night. What happened was the community took the matter into our own hands, started organizing and protesting, and by Sunday, those charges were dropped. And I think this is an example of what power we have, but also the force that we have behind us in order to preserve and protect our own rights. And we have seen that you have to fight for your rights. And so this is an alarm. This is a red flag in our faces that the time to act is now. We've already seen the rolling back of so many of our rights that in order to bring that to a complete stop is we need to get involved. We need to start organizing and make sure that our voices are heard. And I'm going to just remind everyone again that we could do that by showing up on November 8th or during early vote in order to make sure that we have the right people in office who will stand by protecting our rights, who will codify Roe when it comes to being in federal office, or who will protect women when they are seeking abortion care.
Amen. Thank you so much for that. So, Michelle, what can we do for you right now in your election? And where do you need the most help? And where can we find you on all the things, from social media to the website? Tell us about everything. How can we find you and help you out?
Fantastic. So definitely, if you're in the district, if you are in South Texas, if you're in Texas District 15, make sure that you have updated your voter registration. Make sure everyone in your household is also registered to vote, and reach out to your friends, your vecinos, your primos, even your grandparents, and get them engaged and involved, and let them know why it matters to you. Let them know why you care about this election. What is it going to do for you, and how is it going to affect you? Because when they understand that it's personal, they feel more committed to show up. And it might not be something that they care about just yet, but once they understand really what's at stake here, they will care. So please do that. And this is the message for everyone, especially across Texas, because we are at a moment where we could really change the landscape of the political environment here in South Texas. And it's up to us. It really is up to us to make that change. Secondly, is definitely follow us online. Find us on Michelle V for TX on all social media platforms. Connect with us, help us spread our message, share our posts, let people know about it, and follow along. Just follow along and see what we're going through. Understand the ebbs and flows of everything, but also join us in the fight, right? Every comment, every like, every reshare really goes a long way, because you don't know who's seeing, you don't know who's watching. But also another thing is donate to our campaign. I know we are going to be outspent in this election because my opponent is supported by corporations, by special interests, by the NRA, by Donald Trump. And so we know that there's going to be a lot of money spent, but we've already seen that it's not getting spent wisely and that it doesn't get spent in a way that serves our community or South Texas at all. So whenever you send money our way to the Michelle Vallejo for Congress campaign, we put that money into organizing. We put that money into making sure that our field team and our volunteers have everything they need in order to get the message out, in order to connect with voters directly, and in order to make sure that we have the resources to make sure that those people come out to vote when polls open. It also helps us stay on TV and make sure that we have our signs up, which is also important to make sure that we get our message out. So follow along, and on our website, you could go and read more about me, my platform, and connect with us as well by visiting our online store. And that website is Michelle for TX15.com.
Is it FOR or the number 4?
FOR.
Okay, TX15.com. Okay, I put the wrong URL earlier, but okay, so Michelle for TX15.com. And also, you guys buy her t-shirts. She's the best t-shirts. Seriously, they are awesome. I love your t-shirts. I love your signs. I think it's really fun. You guys have the best branding. It's so fun. So please, everybody, go support Michelle. Amazing candidate. Michelle, amiga, thank you so much for coming on tonight with Mothers Against Greg Abbott and with talking to me. I wish you all the best in the campaign trail. You are so impressive and a wonderful candidate, and I can't wait to tell even more people about you. So I cannot thank you enough, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day and the evening. And we will hopefully see you soon on the campaign trail. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Like I always say, at the end of everything, vamos por 15.